I'm delighted to have Loop as our sponsor for today's podcast. And I honestly love this product because I need it so much in my life. And if you are listening to this podcast, you may be aware of noise sensitivity and the connection with ADHD, also with misophonia, which is where you can hear people chewing or eating quite loudly, and it is debilitating. And I suffer from this. And so for me, Loop earplugs have been a game changer because no longer having to hear all of these sensitive noises and this hypersensitivity when you are trying to concentrate or you're trying to work. And I only had this the other day. I was sat next to someone who was breathing so loudly that I couldn't listen to the actual talk that I was meant to be listening to. And all I could hear was the breathing. And I wished I had my Loop earplugs then because if I had, I know I would have been able to concentrate and focus better. And so it really is something that many of us deal with, ADHD and sensory overload. The link is real. And noise can be a major trigger. And for people with ADHD, it can be harder to concentrate and socialize. So if you are struggling working in a busy office, if there's music in the background, if people are chatting, I would highly recommend using Loop earplugs for this because it helps reduce our anxiety and stress, because if we can't work, we can't concentrate, and we are feeling triggered and we're feeling overwhelmed when we are in this situation, and we may have to leave the room, we may have to work somewhere quieter. And especially if you are listening to this and you're doing exams, or you are having to work in an environment that really matters to get this detailed information out there where you have to concentrate and focus. And it is also difficult when we can hypersensitive to lots of noise. We're decision making and processing the information. That's exactly what happened to me when all I could hear was this person breathing really loudly next to me. I wasn't processing the information that I needed to. So what I love about Loop earplugs is that they understand ADHD, they understand misophonia, they understand these hypersensitivities, and they specifically have different earplugs for it. So they have one called Experience, which is great for music and events, just dimming the noise down, the background noise down slightly. And they've also got something called the Loop Engage, which is good for conversation. So say the voice is very loud, it could be really off-putting and difficult to engage and communicate. So if we've got our Loop earplugs in, it really does help. And especially in sort of social gatherings, if there's background noise and lots of conversations going on, and it can feel really overwhelming. And very often, we want to leave those social situations because it can just feel too overstimulating. So you may also be a parent. And if you are a parent, there's a very high chance you've got an ADHD child in the mix. And we do know about ADHD children, they can be quite noisy. There's lots of energy, lots of stimulus, and they tend to be very sort of loud and noisy and energy. And for us as adults with ADHD, that can be really difficult. So I would highly suggest you head over to Loop earplugs, and I have a discount code for you. I'm really excited to be able to offer this to you. It's 10%. So if you head to the show notes of today's podcast, you will see, you just click on that link, and it will take you straight through to the 10% discount. And then you'll be able to see the different Loop earplugs which are right for you, and you can make a decision. But if you click on the ADHD section on the Loop website, it will give you more information. Or if it is misophonia that you are wanting more help with, they have a whole section on there. So it's a really fantastic website that really helps you understand where those noise sensitivities are and which earplug to help you with. So just head to the show notes of today's episode and you'll see my Loop discount code and link there. Now back to today's episode. Welcome to the ADHD Women's Wellbeing Podcast. I'm Kate Moore-Youssef, and I'm a wellbeing and lifestyle coach, EFT practitioner, mum to 4 kids, and passionate about helping more women to understand and accept their amazing ADHD brains. After speaking to many women just like me, and probably you, I know there is a need for more health and lifestyle support for women newly diagnosed with ADHD. In these conversations, you'll learn from insightful guests, hear new findings, and discover powerful perspectives and lifestyle tools to enable you to live your most fulfilled, calm, and purposeful life wherever you are on your ADHD journey. Here's today's episode. Hi everyone, welcome back to the ADHD Women's Wellbeing podcast. I'm Kate Moore-Youssef and I'm so delighted to have a very exciting guest on today. It's Elise Gendron, and Elise, you may know her on Instagram, and she hides behind the incredible Instagram account called the Mini ADHD Coach. And the Mini ADHD Instagram account has about 575,000 followers. I don't know what you are on YouTube or maybe TikTok or anything else, but I just know to have over 500,000 followers on Instagram is incredibly impressive. And this is all down to your amazing doodles, your depiction of ADHD through illustration and pictures, and being able to help people understand themselves better through such simple mechanisms, but so profound. And you are now promoting your first book, which is so exciting, the Mini ADHD Coach book. I've got lots of notes in there, but this is what we're going to be talking about today. So Elise, well done and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Kate. That's such a lovely introduction, and you're so sweet. And yeah, it's so good to be here with you for my first ever podcast. It's really a pleasure to be able to share some ADHD things with you, and I'm sure we'll have a very lovely conversation today.
I hope so. And listen, I'm just sort of reading here that you were diagnosed at 29, but you knew that you didn't fit the usual sort of ADHD stereotypes. Can you tell me a little bit about what you think those stereotypes are and how you presented with your ADHD?
When I first really discovered ADHD, I tried to look at the symptoms and everything, and I related a lot, but at the same time, I felt like I wasn't, really struggling enough. I felt like I wasn't really allowed even to really think that I could have ADHD because I was doing okay with my profession, I guess, even though I had quite a bumbly, journey, and I was doing okay with, social aspects, and I really did okay in school too. Never did a lot of efforts, and so I wasn't like a complete mess, but at the same time, I felt like I was always not really far from completely drowning, in chaos. So, and this position, feeling like I manage things, but at the same time, it cost me so much to be able to manage everything. And it was really this complicated position that really made me take so much time, to really feel allowed even to just accept that I could have ADHD and really ask for an assessment in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I totally relate to what you said then, because I also had a little bit of imposter syndrome about, oh my goodness, I'm not drowning, I'm not struggling on like a massive level. But like you said, I knew that there was something that was exhausting me and everything felt hard work. Like I always kind of like compare it to sort of swimming upstream, like just feeling like there's something extra on our back that we just couldn't quite, understand. So I totally relate. And I think a lot of other women will relate to that there was just something maybe like a barrier in the way, like this invisible barrier that we just couldn't articulate. And I think what you do so beautifully on your account, your Instagram account, but also in your book is you have this way of giving your personal observations, your personal experiences in the book. And then, you sort of map it out a little bit so people can really relate to it for themselves. And then you give advice. And that's what I love, so much, because this book, if a lot of people can't afford coaching, they can't afford therapy, or they just need lots of visualizations, I think this is what it does really, really well. And so it's the kind of thing that I would have on my bedside table and just kind of open, have a little flick through. Something might just stay in my head, a little piece of advice, a little nugget of whether it's organizing, whether it's like a mental health thing, whether it's just a little hack to get through the day better. And you can't underestimate the power of something like that, because if one thing helps you get ready quicker in the morning, that means you start your day better, it means you have a better day at work or with your kids. That's a huge amount. That's really taking, the edge off for many people. So I don't want you to underestimate the power of a doodle and an illustration. I mean, I'm so interested to how you thought, right, I'm going to start this account. Is illustrating, is drawing something that you were doing before? And what possessed you to start with a social media account?
I always been quite creative and artistic, and so the first thing I did after high school was to get into the fine art school, and I stayed there for 2 months. So I really
Red flag.
Yeah. When I understood that nobody will check if I really got into the classes, I think, I just think getting out from so many years of high school and having such a structure, and then you go to a fine art school like that, and they are quite like, you're free, you're really free to do whatever you want. So I did whatever I wanted, and it was not going to school. I always, doodled and draw, especially in high school. Yeah, I really like to try new creative stuff all the time, really ADHD fashion, trying new hobbies, new creative things. And I had an Instagram account about that for my creative adventures. And it was an Instagram account that I used to share. One time it was about painting, and then I did a bit of embroidering. Is that right?
Yeah.
Embroidery. And so it was, just a little account. I had like a few 100 people there that follow what I did. It was really mainly friends from this arty community on Instagram. And so I got my assessments, and I got my ADHD diagnosis. And it was in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. And at first I felt really relieved, I remember getting out of the psychiatrist office with a smile on my face and feeling like everything would be so amazing now. And the few days that followed this, I felt extremely depressed. It was really hard because, all of a sudden I had this answer that I waited for a long time, but it didn't really change anything, and it made things worse. My symptoms were worse, and also we were all confined. It was complicated. So I felt really bad. So I just drew something. It was just a little doodle, and you can still see my first post if you scroll for hours. And it was just this little character, and she was just saying, I have ADHD and it's okay. And I think I made this post, and I said that because I don't think I believed this at the moment I posted it, because I felt so bad. I thought maybe I wouldn't be able to achieve anything I was sad. I was really sad. And so I just posted this, on my Archie account. And a few people commented on it and told me that they have ADHD too. And I don't know, it just clicked a bit. And so in the next few days, I decided to try to post a few doodles and just to have fun, talking about ADHD, but also have fun with creativity. And I also really wanted to start conversation about it, because I felt sad, but I also felt really angry that nobody really noticed before, because there are so many signs in my life. I spent months before this assessment in therapy with another psychiatrist, telling me, like, I was complaining about my ADHD symptoms for years, and he never, told me about it. And so, I think I really wanted also to just talk about it, and I remember talking about it in my family because obviously I knew some people around me that should get assessed as soon as possible, and now we have quite a few family diagnoses. And I just didn't want to stay silent anymore. I wanted to just to talk about it, and so I started sharing a few posts like that, and people really liked them, and looking back, I can really say that it's really, I don't know if it saved me, but it really helped me getting out of this really complicated phase and feeling that I was not alone, or maybe we were all alone but together. Especially at this moment.
Yeah, I think you're so right. I think that's exactly what it is. And the reason why, accounts like yours have probably been so successful is that you are opening the eyes of so many other girls and women who have been exactly in the same situation as you, whether it's been medical gaslighting of being dismissed and invalidated, of being told that there's, you're either imagining symptoms or you've got anxiety, or you've got depression, take this medication, and not really being heard. And so you're sat in a psychiatrist who you are giving a lot of hope and faith, thinking that they're going to help you and diagnose you correctly. And when you haven't had that, you still don't understand yourself. So finally you get this diagnosis that finally helps you understand yourself. Of course, you're going to want to express that in any way that you can. So I think it was probably your way of processing it. And and almost like having that therapy yourself of, these are all the little tiny signs and symptoms that no one else picked up on, but now I can talk about them, but also help open other people's eyes. And that's what, going through your account, the nuances and all the little tiny signs that are almost hidden to anyone else, but are so profound to us and can often be very debilitating. And I think that's why, your account has probably done very, very well. Obviously we can hear that you're from France. Whereabout in France are you?
I'm in Bordeaux, on the west coast.
Okay. So obviously my kind of experience with ADHD is English speaking. So I deal a lot with the UK, America, Australia, but I don't really have any dealings with any other European countries, non-English speaking. How is ADHD looked at in France? I know you can't speak about other countries. And what's it called in French?
It's called TDAH.
TDAH.
TDAH. It's a TDAH.
TDAH.
Yeah.
Okay, TDAH. Yeah.
So and it's basically the same thing, but we are far behind in terms of awareness. It's getting better. I can see on Instagram that, because I also have a French account, I try to translate my post in a lot of different languages, because I think, it's really important, to give this accessibility to other information, not just the clinical stuff that, you see everywhere, but is not really that helpful sometimes. We need both. I think a lot of people, just like me, French, are consuming English-speaking content, and they're inspired to start their own content in French. So the past few years, we saw quite a lot of new accounts, and we are starting to talk more about it. And my book will actually be translated to French and will be out in October. So that's great. Yeah, but in France, we have a different, I would say, culture of mental health. Most psychiatrists are doing a lot of psychoanalysis. We don't have really the same approach, and I think it's changing. But if you are seeing a psychiatrist that is, for example, 50 years old in France, there is not a lot of chance that he will talk to you about ADHD or things like that. He will mainly, try to understand your childhood and things like that. But they are quite afraid to label people, I guess.
So he'll try and explain your childhood, okay? And we know to a point that that's helpful. I hear this a lot from people that they've gone through years, often decades of therapy, and they just go round and round in circles because, yes, we can deal with our past. It's really important. We heal, we release, we feel it. But if that's not changing the present and helping us move forwards and, in the future, then there's something quite big missing in the whole therapeutic care. And to be able to have that diagnosis and say, right, it's ADHD, and this is why you have had lots of jobs, hobbies, partners, houses, you've moved around. Like, we need explanations so we can, first of all, forgive ourselves, accept ourselves, send compassion to ourselves, but also be okay with ourselves and just be like, okay, this is, and I love this element of your book. I'm just going to find it here. You've actually got a whole section on hobbies. For people with ADHD, there's a lot of shame there. I know it sounds ridiculous, but we can have loads of hobbies. You've really honed in on this, and you're saying other people often misunderstand this behavior and it can bring shame. And you've given lots of advice with it. And you're going to quote you here. Growing up, I remember feeling quite bad about being so inconsistent with my hobbies. Now I tend to accept it better as I know it's widespread trait among people with ADHD. I mean, I was just like, why? Why am I always interested in something like really instantaneously, need to research it, go and buy all the stuff, and then literally out of nowhere, it's gone. It's like, poof, out my head, don't want to go near it, don't want to see it again. And now I understand it's to do with the dopamine, it's to do with like keeping our brains going, the interest, the curiosity. But before then, you feel, the words I used to call myself was like flaky, like inconsistent. I never really get to the bottom. Like, why don't you ever just like see things through? I never get to the point where I'm sort of qualified in something, all these different things. So now, I can understand, and you've given, I'm going to just read this out. And that's why so many people with ADHD report engaging in new hobbies very often. But because of our brains are prone to boredom, we also often get disinterested in these hobbies quite quickly. And I love what you've done here, because I think this is me. You've got a picture of a succulent and that's what I used to do. I used to do literally, that was my business for 2 years. And then in the middle of the pandemic, just before I got diagnosed, I literally said to my husband, I can't do this anymore. And I packed my car up and took it to the, a charity shop and left everything outside the charity shop and said, this is all for you because I'm done with it all. And that was a big thing for me because I just didn't understand. So, did you have that as well? Like, what were your hobbies and how do you feel now about that?
Well, I can't give you the full list because I don't even remember. It's just, it's I don't even want to think about it. But yeah, I've always been like that. And I remember, because as you say, we feel shame about this trait. But I remember also when I was growing up, people and my parents, but, they didn't know better, I guess. They also didn't help, because when you have a kid and he started doing something and he's quite good at it, sometimes, you can be weirdly good at something you just started. And if you see your kid getting bored and wanted to quit this thing, of course, it's hard as a parent, I guess, to just be okay with it. So you are trying to say, but are you sure you don't want to keep doing it? You are so good, and you liked it, and yeah. But at the same time, if you are not equipped as a kid to understand, you will just think that something is wrong with you. Because if it happened just once, it's okay. We all get bored of stuff sometimes. But when you start getting older, and I guess, when you are a young adult, it's really, there is a peak, I guess, around 25, when you start to really look back and see all the patterns in your life. And, they're starting to accumulate, really. And you're like, okay, maybe there is something here. And, it's a shame pile up, and you really... And people just are saying little stuff like, oh, but you were so good at it. Why did you quit? Why did you, why don't you try to push through? And they don't realize, because, they are not mean intended, but they are just touching this scar you have really about your self-esteem, because you know that you are a quitter, that you are flaky, that you never persevere in everything, in anything, and it's just, as the year are advancing, it starts to really hurt. I think it started to hurt a lot. And actually, it was one of the main traits I asked an assessment. It was this thing I couldn't explain. And it was not just hobbies, it was also, career path, and just, I tried so many things, and, you have this brilliant idea, and you are sure that it's your new identity. Oh yes, I'm going to be this whatever profession, and I'm going to be good at it, and you enroll in a course or something, and 2 months later it becomes something like, yeah, you don't want to hear about it anymore. So yeah, I think it's really something that I couldn't explain. And that's really the thing that made me pursue, well, among other things, but I think it was a big, big motivation to pursue the assessment.
So I'm just interrupting today's podcast just to give you a bit of an update on the different events and workshops that I've got going on. I don't want you guys to miss anything. So you may have seen on social media that I have an exclusive event with ADHD pioneer. She's a psychotherapist and author, Sari Solden. She's been on the podcast. It was about a year ago, and she is incredible. She's written numerous books, but her book, which has been pretty much on my desk ever since I started coaching ADHD women, A Radical Guide for Women with ADHD, is incredible. And I recommend this to so many people who have just been diagnosed. So when she came on the podcast it was a year ago, I said to her, I would absolutely love to do an event with you. And finally it's happened. So this is happening on the 19th of October at 7 p.m. UK time. And we're going to be doing a live conversation interview, but also a Q&A. So if you show up live and you're there, you will get the opportunity to ask Sari anything you want with regards to neurodivergence, ADHD, and really kind of tapping into her knowledge and wisdom, because she's seen it all in her 35 years of being a psychotherapist in this area. So all the details are going to be on my website, adhdwomenswellbeing.co.uk. That's also going to be on today's show notes. Please head to those links, and I promise you, you will not be disappointed with this conversation with someone who really knows her stuff and has all the answers, I hope, for anyone that's just starting this journey with ADHD. And also, if you head to my website, you'll get an update on a nervous system 4-part workshop that I have created. And this is all based on polyvagal theory. So if you are interested in help with regulating, calming, soothing your nervous system, that you've really noticed that you live in a very sort of hypervigilant, sympathetic state of being in this sort of place where you don't quite feel settled, and you want to be able to find new practical tools and daily practices to help calm and regulate, I would highly recommend you have a look at the workshop series and see if it's for you. There's only a few places left. And finally, just to let you know, the hormone series is still going strong. I can't get over how many people have downloaded it. And I'm adding new content right now. We've got 2 new speakers that are just going in, Kate Shepherd-Cohen and Nicola Harker. Nicola is a doctor and she specializes in self-compassion. And Kate Shepherd-Cohen created the menstrual cycle support resource, which is going into over 500 GP surgeries as we speak. Both incredible women who know their stuff, who really understand the neurodivergent women, the impact of hormones, and how we can help ourselves through these challenging times. So all the information is on my website, adhdwomenswellbeing.co.uk. Now back to today's episode. What does this Alice now, who looks back at her sort of self maybe 10 years ago, and you've now got a published book, Instagram account with 500,000 followers, you're helping millions of people all around the world, genuinely. Like, how does that feel now when does that negative self-talk still come in?
Yeah, of course.
Does it?
Yeah, definitely. I won't lie. It definitely helps. I feel better. I have proof that I am not a failure. Yeah.
You really
So
do.
I can, yeah, I have numbers, I have stuff, So yeah, I have proofs that I can use in my mind when I'm just, I have this negative self-talk. So I think I have tools to defend myself against myself now. So it's getting better, but yeah, I think it's still hard because you still grew up with this vision of yourself, and the imposter syndrome is crazy. It's just no matter how many followers you will have, no matter how many books you will publish with great or incredible publishing houses, and no, but I think no matter anything, it's just it's really on yourself to be able to build your self-worth in your mind and to defend it and to rebuild yourself, really, because I think the thing is with ADHD we can really come to a moment in our life where our self-esteem is so low, so I know that I'm getting better. I'm rebuilding myself, but at the same time, I also have a lot of empathy for people who don't have these tools, don't have these proofs that they are not a failure. And I feel that I'm really lucky and I'm really privileged because by chance, I was able to do something at one moment that really related with many people, and then it led to many opportunities. But there are still people around us that are not at this point and are suffering a lot because they don't have, a few years now of accomplishment and things that can help build back their self-esteem. And I hear them on my comments, for example, on Instagram. I can see that they are really struggling. And I really hope that they will find the things that prove to them that they are not failures. But I can guarantee that they will, and that is really something that is really important for me about awareness is people tend to forget that when you have ADHD or undiagnosed ADHD is even worse, we are at risk of terrible things and being stuck in really dark places. And I think we have to cheer up people and tell them that they can accomplish great things even with ADHD. And it can really almost help sometimes, as you said, we have a lot of curiosity and everything, but at the same time, I always think also about the ones that are still stuck in difficult places and don't really have access to this vision of their same self. And I think if I still have difficult moments, even though I have accomplished quite great things these past few years, I can't imagine how I would feel if I haven't.
Yeah. And I totally understand what you're saying, because I think when you've got a public platform, lots of people message you, and I get very similar messages as well. And I try and respond with a lot of kindness and understanding and empathy, because everyone's on their different journeys at different times. And when you read the messages from people who are just at the very beginning, or they're waiting for a diagnosis, or they've just had that kind of moment of like, oh my God, like someone's just told me that I might have ADHD. I don't know anything about it, but can you point me in the right direction? You kind of think in your head, oh my God, they've got quite a long way to go. What we went through, because I look back and I think about that whole process of finding out, waiting for the diagnosis, getting the diagnosis, processing it, really going through all my life. That was a tough time. That was during the pandemic, homeschooling my kids, reliving my childhood, but also seeing my childhood being played out with my own kids at similar ages where my ADHD sort of showed up. And so many of us are going, especially women are going through this because we're only just getting this awareness, and we've been fobbed off, or we've been not even seen, and we've been masking so much that no one's even been able to, find out what's gone on. And then something happens and there's women crumbling all over the place who are are needing help. And it does, what's interesting is that, yes, there's a huge amount of privilege there. There really is, because if you are a white woman, a middle-class woman, the access to help is out there. But if you're not, then it's much harder, or the communities aren't there, or there's a lot of communities who just don't believe in ADHD, who don't understand it. They don't want to talk about it. Mental health, they don't want to talk. And so we now, through maybe my podcast and maybe your book and your Instagram account, it's giving a lot of people access to information that they would never have been able to get. And so I guess maybe what I'm trying to say to you is that I can see that you have this abundance of empathy and sensitivity, and you want to help. And it can get really hard at times because it's all consuming, and sometimes we have to have some boundaries up, because everyone's problems and everyone's stories, and it gets enmeshed in our lives. And sometimes we need to have like a bit of a wall up, which can feel quite harsh. But to protect your mental health and to protect you so you can carry on helping, we kind of have to have something. I'm still working on this, by the way. I need to have some answers to this as well, because I feel really bad when I get messages from people and I don't respond to them, for a few days or things like that. But I guess am I right in saying that you are a mother now? You've got a child. Yeah. How old's your child?
She will be 1 in a few days, actually.
Wow. So you've birthed a book and a child in the same year?
Yeah. Yeah, I was pregnant when I wrote it mainly, and also I did a bit of it when she was just born. So yeah, the best time, to make a book.
Wow. Yeah, I was going to say, just, because obviously sleep deprivation and having a newborn baby and finishing off a book, was that intense for you? How did your ADHD show up for you during pregnancy, after childbirth? Like, did you notice hormonal shifts for yourself?
Actually, sometimes I feel like the pregnancy fixed me in a way, hormonally. I don't know why, but I had the most wonderful pregnancy. Except the first trimester, I was I was so tired, but it was okay. It was just in the winter. I just slept for 3 months, so
nice.
It was okay. And then I had a really nice pregnancy. I felt great, and after I had a nice birth too, and yeah, I think it got a bit difficult after that, and I feel like it's like an ADHD diagnosis, because you focus so much, when you're prepared on the main event, like getting the diagnosis or giving birth, but you forget that there is something after that you will have to deal with, and it's the postpartum part, and after the diagnosis, nobody really warned you that it will be the really difficult part. It's something else to be a mother with ADHD. It's hard, really. It's awesome, but it's really hard. And I think, the shame we talked about earlier, it's really difficult to manage this, because, of course, when you are a mother, you feel so observed, by everything and anyone, and I think, just simple stuff like managing, the medical appointments or things like that. It's really important. And when you are sleep deprived, you never imagined it was even humanly possible to survive, and then you have this ADHD brain, and you have to, take care of this beautiful tiny human, and making appointments, and it's really important stuff. You can't really miss these things, and it's so much pressure. But I think in the end we manage, we find ways. But I'm just at the start of my adventure. So.
Yeah. I mean, listen, what you explained then about having a good pregnancy, it's actually sort of anecdotally from what we know. I mean, I've just released an ADHD women's hormone series. And so I'm really going into the intricacies of the hormone impact on ADHD. And from what we know, the estrogen rises in our pregnancy. With estrogen for us is good. It's like fuels our dopamine. So it's typically, good for us to be pregnant. Obviously, that's not, a standard. Lots of other people's, are different. But then obviously we have this drop in estrogen when we give birth. And that's why very often a lot of women with ADHD do suffer from postpartum depression and really sort of, feel much lower postnatally. So there seems to be a pattern there. And also, like you say, if we have been managing our symptoms with lifestyle, with like making sure that we're sleeping, we're eating at the right times, we are exercising, we're getting outside, all of that goes out the window. And then, like you say, we're not able to really focus on ourselves. We're focusing on a small baby with lots of organization. That's why a lot of people are getting diagnosed when they become mothers, because all their ADHD symptoms are just like coming up to the forefront, like in this sort of extreme, startling, like hit you in the face kind of way. And I definitely experienced this. So I can really relate and just send you lots of love and compassion, because get help. That's what I would say is get as much help as you can, and don't be ashamed. Do not be ashamed to make sure if you've got a partner that they really step up to the mark. If you can outsource anything that you can afford to outsource, do it. I mean, my mantra is like, don't be a martyr. Don't be a martyr, and do whatever you can to stay afloat. And the most important thing is that you love your baby. And doing the washing or having a clean kitchen or washed hair doesn't demonstrate love. It's like, it's showing it, to outside sort of societal expectations.
Yeah.
So I wish someone had said that to me. My son, my eldest, is nearly 18. And I had no idea about any of this. And so I look back now and I think, someone had just said to me this, I think it would have been easier. But I just think what you've achieved with the book and with the all the help that you do is incredible. And I hope that you get some time now to enjoy. And I hope the imposter syndrome takes a bit of a back seat so you can really see what you've done. Now, I don't mean to put any pressure on you, but do you have any other plans, or are you quite happy just to sit and rest for a little bit? Or has this book kind of like given you a bit of a kickstart for other things?
Well, what many people really don't see behind the scene of my social media presence is that there are a lot of people actually. We are a small business, and we are developing our YouTube channel. We are translating my posts in a lot of languages. We are building websites in every languages too. So, I don't think rest is really something that it would be nice, but and when you have a book coming, you also need to promote it, and so I don't think that things will be less intense right now, but at the same time, I think I have a weird relationship with intensity, because I would love to rest a bit and to be able to tell to myself, okay, you've done this and you've done that, maybe you can just enjoy and just sit back and everything, but that's not really the way I'm wired. So we have a lot of things ongoing. And also, I have a lot of ideas and I really like to develop new things. And so I think it's really hard when you are a content creator or a small business owner and you have ADHD, because you have great ideas that you want to bring to the world, and you are often really passionate about it, but at the same time, you have to execute those ideas, and it's not easy. Because at first it's great, and then when you have to finalize the little details, it can get a bit complicated for your ADHD brain to stay motivated. But as you said, as a mother, we need to learn to get help, and I think as business owners, it's the same thing. We need to. So that's why we have a team now that are working with me. So yeah, it's very exciting.
Oh, well, listen, I'm, wishing you so much luck and success because you deserve it. And I hope that with all this amazing ambition and ideas and everything, you are taking time to rest, because we don't want you to burn out. No. Because I totally get it. You have ideas, you want to create content. And when you're talking about ADHD, you're living it as well. So something happens in your life and you're like, oh my God, I can talk about this. So you're constantly feeding back into the business. And I totally get that you can't quite ever switch off because you're literally living your business and you're always trying to, you could just be one step ahead of your audience. So when something happens, that is going to help someone else. So you feel, you have to, I talk about it, you write about it. But yeah, I mean, it's just fascinating to talk to you. And thank you for sharing a glimmer of behind the scenes of the account and the book. Can you tell people how they can find you, what you're offering? Like, do you have anything going on with your website? Like what services or offers do you have going on apart from the book?
So they can definitely find me first on Instagram, but also on my website, miniadhdcoach.com. And mainly I offer, a workbooks that I created a few years ago, especially to help people during, the difficult phase we talked about earlier when you are waiting for your assessments. For me, it was just, such a difficult moment, to live with these doubts. And every day I woke up and I was like, of course I have ADHD. It's obvious, and at the end of the day, I went to bed and I thought, no, I don't. I'm just lazy. And I just, and that every day for months. And I really empathize with people who are living this moment right now. And that's why I created this workbook that, they can use to assess themselves. I created description of every symptom, but in a way that it's easier to understand, because the clinical lists are sometimes really weird and really hard to relate to as a grown woman, because, they were developed for little boys or things like that. So, and they can also journal their memories, and it actually helped a lot of people, and I also got a lot of feedback from psychiatrists who really like, this tool for their patient, because it's a great way to prepare and to feel just more confident and to feel like you are allowed. Really, you have the right to wonder if you have ADHD. It's okay. And it doesn't seem like much, but when you are living this, it can get so hard, this doubt. So that's mainly the other thing I offer besides the book. And also we have this YouTube channel we are building. So that's it mainly.
Fantastic. Well, I'll make sure that all the links are in the show notes so people can find all of these tools. And Elise, thank you so much for being here. And I hope that we can speak very soon.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kate. It was lovely.
Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. I hope you found what you were looking for in this conversation, and it's helped guide you towards some further self-healing, self-exploration, and most importantly, self-acceptance. And if you have enjoyed this conversation and would like to experience more of my work, such as access to exclusive live workshops and opportunities for group coaching sessions, connecting with other like-minded women, and a general feeling of belonging, please come and check out my monthly membership, the ADHD Women's Wellbeing Collective. I've made it as affordable as possible, and I offer you lots of resources and opportunities for connection and support from other women all around the world being diagnosed with ADHD later on in life. I'd absolutely love to see you there. All the details are in this episode's show notes or on my website, adhdwomenswellbeing.co.uk. See you in the next episode.